Miles Morales readies his last stand in the explosive finale to Cody Ziglar's landmark run in the pages of Miles Morales Spider-Man issue number 42. Meanwhile, over in DC, learn the secret origins of the Lion, Batman's newest and most fearless foe in the pages of Detective Comics number 1105. Oh, but we're still not done. Stick around because Mr. Terrific will be forced to make the ultimate sacrifice if it means defeating Neron and saving Earth from the Devil's Wrath in the pages of Justice League Unlimited, issue number 15. So with that in mind, everybody, join me as we dig on into 3 more great books on the comic shelf this week, shall we? So then, picking up directly from where the last issue left off, Miles was fighting a losing battle against the Accessor and his never-ending army of drones. Thankfully, through the help of Anansi, the spider god of stories, Peter Parker was able to get himself teleported in from his own book to help assist and turn the tide of battle, and I assume also be put back so he can finish his story with Hellgate over in the main Spider-Man book. Look, it's super cool, don't ask too many questions, don't pull the thread on that sweater, just have fun that Miles and Peter are fighting here side by side as Spider-Man, because it's like the coolest, dopest thing ever. Furthermore, gotta give Ziglar all the credit in the world for how he actually chooses to write Peter. He's fun, he's funny, he's self-assured, him and Miles trade all the best quips back and forth with one another, and yet he never actually ends up stealing focus from the main character of the book, which is Miles, though in the end it's actually Spider-Man's brand new Technoarchy suit that might actually hold the key to repairing the damage that the Accessor did to Miles' suit in the previous issue. Remember, Accessor wanted to steal the suit for himself so he could have a more permanent physical form, and because of that, the evil code imprinted upon it means that the suit is no longer healing. Thankfully, a little antivirus made possible by the totally spaced out Spider-Man's brand new suit is exactly what the web doctor ordered. Miles' suit is cleansed of all corruption, and honestly, you know what? Ziglar probably made more of Peter's Technoarchy suit than was actually made in the main Amazing Spider-Man title. I know that's not a huge hurdle to clear or anything, but still, it's certainly something worth complimenting. And you know what? Speaking of complimenting, this might actually be one of the best Deus Ex Machinas I've ever seen. A god made this possible. Now, elsewhere in the city, Raneen the Rabble is also having her own dark night of the soul as she does battle against not just the Accessor's drones, but drones that have decided to play at mental warfare, stealing the face of her father, who is currently afflicted with Alzheimer's, before eventually deciding to steal the form of her dead mother. And oh man, did they really end up going for the throat on Rabble too. Don't you see? You're a diamond, you were forged under pressure, but you're flawed, oh so flawed. Keep that whole diamond allegory in mind because it will actually end up being important later. Back with the other fight, Miles powers up and delivers one hell of a Venom sword slash to the Accessor only moments before he was about to completely dissect poor Peter. With his friend and inspiration saved, the two Spider-Men end up joining together for one last final push against the Accessor. He's losing drones left, right, and center, meaning that they have to be fighting their way back to the True Blue original article. Miles, inspired by a move that he saw Spider-Man use on the Shocker many years ago, picks up an entire dumpster and uses it like a guided missile, splitting open the Accessor's armor like he was a succulent buttered lobster. With his data core finally revealed, Miles can move on in for the kill, deleting this ghost from his past once and for all. Though, just because this battle is over doesn't mean the war is completely won. By the time Miles and Peter manage to find where the rabble is held up, the worst has happened. She killed all the robots that looked like her family, and because of that, she has more or less thrown away all the good therapy work that her and Dr. Kwan had been trying so hard to stick. Raneem says that she finally knows what she's always meant to be, what her gifts were given to her for. She is a flawed diamond, but she is also death and destroyer, and much as the river has no choice when it becomes a flood, she too says she has no choice but to haunt Miles until one or both of them are dead. Wow, and here I think me and a bunch of other people assumed we were going to get a face turn for the rabble, but nope. She ends up completely doubling down on villainy, though in a certain respect it makes a lot of sense because it actually bookends this series very nicely. We end as we began with the rabble trying to kill Spider-Man. Good guy that Miles is doesn't want to see see Raneem throw it all away, especially as he experienced her softer side firsthand when they briefly joined up to fight the Accessor. He reiterates that at the end of the day, they are both not so different from one another. They are both diamonds, forged under incredible pressure. The only difference is that Miles had a support network. He had a psychiatrist, his friends and family, his girlfriend. All things that Raneem never had. Miles admits that he doesn't hate the rabble. He feels full well that had things gone differently, he could very easily have ended up just like her, angry and hateful at the world. Unfortunately for everybody, Miles' A-tier speechifying falls on deaf ears. The rabble has fully dedicated herself to the path of villainy. And just to show she's serious, she says that she's going to go after more than just Miles. She's going to use her newly returned powers to explode every device in New York City, killing untold amounts of innocent people. That is, of course, unless Miles can stop her. He summons up just enough power for one last venom blast, hitting Raneem in mid-air, knowing full well that doing so would cause her to spin out. Miles can't save her, he can barely save himself and might very well have splatted. Had Dr. Kwan not made the scene his power lift. This is funny too, because this is also the first time Miles' psychiatrist ends up meeting Peter, who jumps to the conclusion that Jen must have got some work done while he was away. In classic Marvel supervillain fashion, they never do actually find Raneem's body, only a piece of her armor, which is sadly still not enough to stop poor Miles from beating himself up. He says that he should have tried harder, that he could have saved the rabble if he had just had one more chance. Peter, once again acting like the cool older brother mentor figure, comes on in saying that it took him a long time to realize that you can only meet people where they're at, not where you would want them to be, and that sometimes the real mettle of a hero is just showing up every day, doing the work. If the rabble is still out there, then Miles will certainly have a chance to try again. Maybe he can't save Raneem from herself, but maybe he can make a dent. Maybe he can help the rabble want to save themselves for a change. Now, as the comic begins to wind down, we're treated to several little asides showing Miles getting on with his life after this big climactic battle. He even breaks out the journal narration again, something he hasn't done for a bit. These panels are all great too, because they play in wonderful contrast to how Miles was feeling at the beginning of this series. Again, remember, he was stretched too thin. He thought he was falling apart. He thought he was taking too much kindness from those around him. But now he's in a much better place, physically, mentally. He has time to spend with his friends. He has time to spend with other heroes like Miss Marvel and Peter. His sister is growing up. Misty Knight is giving him more responsibility on their stakeouts. And as the whole thing comes to a close, the two Spider-Man share a hot dog with each other, only to have an armored car end up getting robbed just below them. Peter asks if it's one of his or one of Miles. And when we realize it's the Bumblers, Ziglar's first original villains at Marvel, in case you were wondering, he speeds into action, bringing this story and this run to a proper close. Well, not totally, because in classic Marvel fashion, we also have a post-credit for this issue. We are introduced to the Prime Warrior Corporation, a new player in the super soldier industry that just so happens to be tracking the radiation from the origin boxes that Miles brought back with him from the new Ultimate Universe. Their CEO ends up hiring the original Spot to get the boxes, even if it means going through Spider-Man. Want to know more about that? Be sure to check out Armageddon coming soon. Now, from the worlds of Spider-Man to the worlds of Batman, as we dig on into Detective Comics, we are treated to the long-awaited origin of Leo Kingsford, aka the new supervillain calling himself the Lion. Now, as everyone and their mothers had already assumed, yes, young Leo was indeed the little kid we saw in the flashback all the way at the beginning of this arc. What we didn't know is that his father, Mark, was actually a hitman for the Falcone crime family. Once Batman had taken him in, Leo was all alone in the world. Jim Gordon had attempted to reach out to the kid, who, after his run-in with Batman, had regressed to a terrified, childlike state. And hey, if you're thinking to yourself, man, this is really similar to how a young Gordon reached out to Bruce the night the Waynes were killed, well, this is just the first of many similarities we're gonna see moving forward. One big difference, though, is that while little Bruce embraced Jim Gordon, this Leo kid scratched up poor Jimbo's face. After that, little Leo got himself thrown into foster care, bounced around from home after home. He was incredibly brilliant, but also had special needs. He was racked with agoraphobia, meaning he was terrified to go outside. Not to worry, though, he would end up finding proper accommodations thanks to a grant from the Wayne Foundation, meaning that little Leo also grew up idolizing idolizing Bruce Wayne, so much to the point that by the time he was 17, he would actually end up meeting his hero when he won a local science fair. Bruce had totally forgotten that the two had met in the past, but once this piece of information is uncovered, everything else ends up coming back to him. The two bonded right away, and why shouldn't they? They have so much in common. Bruce opens up to the kid about being raised by a man who wasn't his father, but how important letting that love and relationship into his life was. He also told him that he completely understood not wanting to go out in Gotham City. After all, it can be a very scary place, but he hopes that Leo will use his big mind to try and help make the city a better place. The kind of place where nobody needs to fear. Oh boy, he'll really end up regretting that in a couple years, won't he? Wow, can't remember the last time I've seen that. A villain who loves Bruce Wayne but hates Batman. A villain for whom our hero is both his inspiration and the one who created him simultaneously. Wow, that's a lot to think on. That's a lot to grow on. In fact, geez, the Lion is just as much a dark mirror to Bruce, who uses terror as a weapon, as he is to the Scarecrow, who weaponized fear itself. Now, believe it or not, the final piece of the puzzle on the Lion actually comes courtesy of none other than Black Canary, who I think we're going to be seeing a lot of her, and Green Arrow in this book as time goes on, according to solicitations. It seems that once Leo got brave enough to leave his house, he decided to try and learn how to fight. Makes sense. Batman had mentioned in a previous issue that the Lion's style was very familiar. And that's because Ted Grant the Wildcat actually taught him how to box. He was good, really good in fact. They saw title runs in his future. He won every fight he was in, that is of course until he picked a fight with Black Canary, who knocked him out in a single punch. It's in that moment all the good work that he had done facing his fears was instantly shattered as his agoraphobia came back all over again. Man, what is it with villains relapsing so hard this week in not one but two universes? Now that Batman finally knows what makes the Lion tick, he hopes that he can stop him before he ends up releasing the full force of his courage toxin all over Gotham City. Thankfully, he won't have to do it alone, though, as Mr. Terrific has assembled a dream team of some of the greatest scientific minds from across the DC universe, and the Scarecrow, who's just kind of helping out now, into trying and produce a cure. The only problem, though, is that the research has hit a little bit of an impasse right now. They need to actually test it on a subject, and the only two people they have with advanced enough cases of poisoning are that little boy that Bruce managed to get off that boat in the first issue, and, well, Batman himself. Of course, Batman refuses to let the kid be a guinea pig, which means it looks like the cure is going to be tested on Batman or no one else at all. Though, sadly, time is not on anyone's side, as all across Gotham City it looks like chaos is breaking out. A group of armed individuals have assaulted the GCPD building, and now all first responders in the city are tied up attempting to fight the fires, both literal and figurative. Damian calls in, thinking that he might very well have discovered where the Lion and his men hope to spike the reservoir with their toxin. And if you're thinking to yourself, wow, really, this was the Lion's big plan, poison the water supply? Geez, how Scarecrow of him. Well, don't worry, because the Lion also agrees that that plan is pretty damn stupid. In fact, the whole poisoning the city thing, that was just one giant smokescreen. In fact, this whole time, the Lion says he's actively been stringing Batman along, leaving him enough breadcrumbs that he would follow in his toxin-induced state. You see, Damian actually ended up walking himself completely into a trap and getting blown up. Why was he so reckless? Well, I was right in the previous issue. Damian was indeed already exposed to the toxin. This has always been more about revenge on Batman than it's actually been transforming the city, though that's not to say the Lion hasn't already done that. In fact, he admits that those strange clouds from the beginning of this comic, yeah, that was actually the dispersal method. The Lion doesn't have to poison Gotham City because Gotham City is already poisoned. It's been poisoned for days, and there's still no cure. How very Ozymandias of you. My evil plan was actually already complete before you got here. And hey, you know what? Mr. Terrific is getting a lot of love this week because we also got to talk about Justice League Unlimited issue number 15. When we last left off, the Watchtower was going offline after exerting way too much power trying to rescue people from Earth and the events of DCKO. For a minute there, it really looks like all hope is lost until a mysterious blue portal portal ends up opening up inside of the docking bay. It's there Blue Beetle Ted Kord ends up coming face to face with the returning Airwave. You'll remember that he and the new members of the Legends of Tomorrow had left to go to the Vanishing Point to try and fix some wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey problems, only to get stopped by a literal chronal barrier that stopped them from returning in enough time to warn the good guys about what was actually going on with Darkseid and everything else. Well, guess what? They had actually discovered a signal that would allow them to get in contact with the Watchtower, or making use of Airwave's powers to ride, well, the airwaves. They were able to teleport him back to the Watchtower in modern day, though it took an incredible amount of power to do so. Yeah, that's actually why the Watchtower has been malfunctioning this whole time. Still, no point in looking a gift horse in the mouth. The Watchtower is back online, and they have an extra warm body to throw into the fight, and oh boy, do they need it right now, as Wallace West and his team are currently pinned down by an army of D-list supervillains doing the bidding of Neron in exchange for having their souls save passage to hell when Earth ends up exploding. The good guys' reinforcements really help them turn the tide of battle. However, when Kid Flash thinks he finally might be able to end this once and for all by smashing the church's pulpit, in doing so severing the villain's connection to Neron, the devil himself finally ends up revealing his true design, and that is that if Kid Flash does end up destroying the pulpit, he will save the lives of all the civilians in this small town, but he will doom all of the villains to death. So, you know, either way, lots of people are going to die, and there's going to be a lot of blood on the hero's hands, meaning that maybe the only way they're actually going to be able to solve this problem is if Mr. Terrific and his team are able to cut off Neron at the source, which isn't going to be easy, as Terrific's 10 has been fully whittled down to a serviceable at best 6. Oh wait, did I say 6? Because that number ends up dropping way lower way quickly. A massive toothy beast ends up erupting from under the snow with hopes of devouring the entire team in a single chomp. This is where Superman Blue, who had quite literally lost all of his hope in the previous issue, decides that he is only dragging the team down, and the only real way he'll be of any use is if he sacrifices himself to save the rest of the team. That's pretty damn rough, but the hits just keep on coming. Golden Hawk ends up falling next, tricked into trying to help a person he thought was drowning, only to have himself corrupted and transformed into a bloodthirsty monster who instantly attacks his team. Tim Drake, the Batman Beyond, heroically ends up blocking a killing blow meant for Dr. Fate. He dies in Mr. Terrific's arms, and only moments after he had had a heart-to-heart with Michael about how he never felt like he measured up to any other hero in his time or now. Oh, that's so sad. I almost forget that your origins are in Future's End. Yes, I'm still mad all these years later. Tim, to his credit, ultimately did end up getting off fairly easy. It's poor Dr. Fate on the next leg of the trip who gets it worse than just about anyone else in this issue, very literally ripped to pieces by dozens of angry demon insects. Wow, that is like really brutal, and actually probably pushes the envelope on violence in this one more than any other issue so far. Mr. Terrific ends up showing up in Neron's throne room just as he sends out his message to Kid Flash, meaning that these two stories are officially dovetailing together. Michael knows full well just how important this mission is. For every moment they're wasting here in hell, there are people back on Earth they could be saving and trying to get away from the coming horrors of Earth becoming just another fire pit-like apocalypse. It's because of that Mr. Terrific chooses to make the ultimate sacrifice and strike a devil's deal with Neron, his soul, in exchange for the safe passage of all of his friends and other heroes up above. Terrific even does a good job talking himself up to saying that he's the smartest man on Earth with more connections than just about anyone else. If he agrees to this deal, he will be Neron's eyes and ears, his champion on Earth. There's no telling what doors he could potentially open and what victories he could deliver to the devil himself. Only here's the problem. There was 2 people that entered the throne room, right? What happened to Owlwoman? Well, it seems she already took Neron's deal. And as the comic ends up coming to a close, she sucker punches Mr. Terrific from behind. Damn it, I knew we shouldn't have trusted Owlwoman. And there you have it, everybody. 3 more great books that came out this week in the world of comics. Miles Morales managed to end with a major bang. Really sad to see this Cody Ziglar era come to a close. I thought the man was working absolute magic from beginning to end. I truly think this will go down as the most important run in Miles Morales history, second maybe only to the original Bendis Ultimate stories. There was just so much growth, so much development. The world, the villains, everything felt so fleshed out, and the ending itself with Miles trying so hard to save a villain that reminded him so much of himself, only to, have it slip through his fingers, but him to try and double his efforts even more. I mean, that's just quintessentially Spider-Man. Hell, Ziegler does such a great job writing Peter in this series, too. I don't know where he's going next after this book comes to a close, but man, I would really like to see him take a swing at Peter at some point. Overall, I would give this one a very well-deserved 9 out of 10. Great stuff. If you haven't been reading this book, now is definitely the time to start. You will not be disappointed with this issue or this run for that matter. Then, of course, you got Detective Comics, and man, if I've said it once, I've said it a million times, but this one really is a sleeper hit for Tom Taylor and DC as a whole. Yet another proof positive, as if you needed it, that Batman had one of the best years in 2025, and the same looks to be true in 2026. Oh, sure, it's not getting as many headlines as Matt Fraction's Batman, it might not be as high a seller as Absolute Batman under Scott Snyder, but it's still so great, and with interesting stories like this, offering us fresh, new, exciting, threatening villains, I think this series is going to end up being an all-timer, which is why I would give this one another very well-deserved 8.5 out of 10. And lastly, how could I possibly forget Justice League Unlimited under Mark Waid? I think this might actually end up being the strongest tie-in to the events of DCKO, and also, quite possibly, maybe one of the best Mr. Terrific stories told in such a long time. Michael Holt is such an interesting, tragic character in this book. I think it's only a matter of time before they eventually end up spinning him off for a solo series. One of the amazing strengths of Justice League Unlimited is how it can really share the spotlight with all these different characters, make you think and feel about heroes in ways that you never thought possible, and to have Mr. Terrific be kind of this anchor that ties the whole thing together, I think it's really, really special, and honestly, I can't wait to see how he gets out of this one. How will the smartest man in the world outsmart the devil? I don't know, but you better believe I'm excited to find out. This one also gets a very strong 8.5 out of 10. And there you have it, everyone. 3 more great books that you should be reading right now. Pick up a book, love a book, you'd be doing yourself a favor, you'd be doing me a favor, and I will be back again next week to do this all over again, everybody.